If you remember flying through rings, flying through stars, and flying through rings made of stars, then you grew up playing Quidditch in Harry Potter games. But which one? Because there were 16 different versions of Quidditch across all the Harry Potter games released, and in this video we're going to compare each of them. Naturally, we start with the Philosopher's Stone, and this being Harry's story, pretty much all early versions of Quidditch will have you playing as the Seeker catching the Snitch. The PlayStation 1 version of Quidditch is broken up into 3 sections. Unsurprisingly, the first one will have you flying through rings generated by the Snitch while trying to dodge the bludgers.
Dodge is a speeding bludger!
The second section is more of the same, only this time you've got to stay ahead of the other team's Seeker.
Here comes the Ravenclaw Seeker!
Oh, watch for the hoop there, Harry. And once you've passed through enough rings, you've got to catch the Snitch. This part is very easy. You've just got to time the Snitch to Harry's open hand.
Potter has the Snitch!
And the crowd goes wild. Especially McGonagall, she lives for that shit. In the PlayStation 1 game, you can play Quidditch as part of the story or in its own mini cup. The game is always the same, but there is a surprising variety of weather and times of the day. We've got sunset, fog, snowy day, rainy night, and midnight. Dumbledore, why are you making these kids play in the middle of the night? Look, the moon's out. The PC version of Philosopher's Stone was very similar. Once again, you play as Harry, the Seeker, and try to catch the Snitch. It does release rings, but it's not necessary to go through them. As long as you're close enough, the game will initiate the catching sequence. This being a PC game, the textures and resolution is higher, but the pitch does seem a bit small and the atmosphere is better on PlayStation 1. Also, it's really obvious in this version that the other players are just flying around in circles. The Game Boy Advance version also had a top-down Quidditch minigame. There's no rings this time, just fly up to the Snitch and perform the catching sequence. Alright, let's move on to the Chamber of Secrets, which had 5 completely different versions, each with their own Quidditch game. The PlayStation 1 version only had you play Quidditch once during the story mode in the game against Slytherin. This version is similar to the movie and has Harry chase Malfoy through the rafters of the stadium while trying to avoid the bludger. It's nice that they decided to do something different, but if you're still looking for that traditional Quidditch experience from the first game, you can also play the Quidditch Cup, which is pretty much identical to the PlayStation 1 version of Philosopher's Stone. The only real difference is the way you catch the Snitch. Instead of a bar, this time you've got to control this weird disembodied hand as the Snitch flies around the screen. In either case, McGonagall is still absolutely buzzing for it. The PC version also seems very similar at first glance, but this time around it's a lot more aggressive and faster paced. There are no more rings, and instead this time you actually kind of follow the Snitch on rails. And the main purpose of the game is to shove and kick the other team's Seeker out of the way. This mechanic is a lot more fun than the original PC game. It's just a shame it's still played in the same small stadium inside of a big bush. Oh, watch your head, Harry. Now, the Game Boy Advance version was an upgrade over its predecessor. This time around, it's in third-person view. The gameplay is similar to the console version. You fly through the ring, stay ahead of the other team's Seeker, and catch the Snitch. And get a load of this epic cutscene. Harry gets hit by the bludger, and then bam! Nice of you to come and visit, Hermione. Now, the Game Boy Color version of Chamber of Secrets also had a cute little Quidditch minigame presented in a side-view perspective. This one also follows the story and has Harry fall off his broom. But the most notable version of Quidditch in all the Chamber of Secrets games is the 6th generation one. This one is night and day when compared to the PC. The stadium is huge, the environment around you looks great, the graphics are beautiful, and look, you even have these lens flare effects from the sun. Gameplay wise, the broom feels smooth and responsive. The rings are back, but this time you fly through them to get a boost which you can use to catch up to the Snitch. There is no catching slider, instead this time you just kind of have to time it right. The developers seem to have liked this version too, so much so that they used it as a basis for its own standalone game, Quidditch World Cup, released the following year. Now, up until this point, you've only ever played as the Seeker because that was Harry's position. So Quidditch World Cup had the tricky task of fleshing out and expanding the gameplay to incorporate all aspects of the Quidditch game. The developers decided to split each match into 2 sections. The first part had you play primarily as the chasers, passing the quaffle back and forth and then using it to score points. Once the pass meter had been filled, the action changed to the traditional seeker type of gameplay. You follow the snitch trails to fill up your boost bar and try to catch the little golden ball. The other two player positions were very much diminished. The beaters would be assigned to a single button, kind of like assist characters, meanwhile the keepers were controlled by the CPU at all times. Now, this game also expanded Quidditch beyond Hogwarts, introducing 9 country teams, each with their own cast of colorful characters and unique stadiums. The game also introduced unique special moves for each team, which saw them score in over-the-top acts of airborne violence. There was also a Game Boy Advance version of Quidditch World Cup, which did a great job of condensing the console experience to a handheld, bringing over as many elements as possible. Unfortunately, World Cup would be followed by somewhat of a Quidditch drought in Harry Potter games. The Prisoner of Azkaban focused on flying Buckbeak instead of the broom. Interestingly enough, there was still a cutscene which showed Harry winning the cup in the console version. The Goblet of Fire had no Quidditch due to the Triwizard Tournament. The closest we'd get to Quidditch would be Harry flying around during the first task. The console and PC versions of Order of the Phoenix had no Quidditch, but the Nintendo DS version did. However, this would end up being a stripped-down port of Quidditch World Cup for the GBA. Eventually, Quidditch would return in Half-Blood Prince, but unfortunately this version was a bit stripped down.
That was brilliant fun!
You play as Harry and fly through these stars, which is very easy because the game is kind of on rails. Every now and then one of the other players will get in your way, but once you fly through enough stars, Harry will just automatically catch the snitch. It is nice seeing an updated version of the Quidditch pitch and the Hogwarts grounds, even if everything looks like it's inside a pickle jar. Also, the pitch always looked really empty to me, even with the cardboard cutout spectators. At one point in the story, you will play as Ginny, but the gameplay is identical to Harry's. Now, the PSP and DS version of Half-Blood Prince also had a top-down Quidditch minigame. It was quite basic, but in a rare move, the developers had it based around a game of 3-on-3 chases. Unfortunately, Half-Blood Prince would be followed by another big Quidditch drought. Both parts of Deathly Hallows had no Quidditch due to story reasons. The LEGO games had some basic broom flying, but no Quidditch. Now, it would be included in a few mobile games. Hogwarts Mystery turned Quidditch into a touchscreen tapping minigame, while Magic Awakens actually tried something different by having you play as the chaser in first-person view as you follow the trail lines to try and score the quaffle. Now, 2023 saw the first AAA Wizarding World game in Hogwarts Legacy. Surely with a budget of $150 million, we'd be treated to some next-level Quidditch gameplay. Nope, no Quidditch whatsoever, which was really strange because the game seemed primed for it. You had this big broom flying mechanic, loads of rings to fly through, and an actual Quidditch pitch complete with Quidditch players all around it. It's almost like the developers just ran out of time, or they excluded it on purpose knowing that a new Quidditch game was already in development. And sure enough, in September of 2024, the broomstick sport saw a revival with the release of Quidditch Champions. This time around, the developers set out to create a modern online multiplayer team game in the vein of Rocket League. And for that to work, they would need to rework many of the game's mechanics. This time around, all 4 positions were playable. The beaters had a much larger presence as they were able to swing the course of the game by taking out the opposition. And the Golden Snitch no longer ended the game with a humongous 150 points for the team that caught it. However, classic staples like the Hogwarts pitch and the Snitch rings would make a return. At launch, the game had 3 major cups: Hogwarts, Triwizard, and the World Cup. However, the country-specific stadiums were missing. Instead, the developers chose to focus on player customization with a myriad of skins, emotes, and other cosmetic elements. The initial reaction to Quidditch Champions from the community has been somewhat positive, with many fans looking forward to future DLC content whilst lamenting the lack of local multiplayer. And so there we have it, every version of Quidditch in every Harry Potter game. From basic snitch catching to playing as wizard David Beckham to pelting online strangers with the bludger. Quidditch has certainly evolved a lot from its early days as a simple minigame, and here's hoping that it doesn't see another decade-long hiatus. But that's just my take. Please let me know your thoughts on Quidditch in video games in the comments below. Which is your favorite version, and where do you see it going in the future? As always, thanks for watching. Please consider supporting me on Patreon, and a huge thanks to my existing existing patrons. Also, if you've enjoyed this video, please remember to like, subscribe, and hit the bell. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.